Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned in to Prime Live. Now, human rights organization Justice for All, based in North America, recently honored our very own former DIRCO minister, Dr. Naledi Pandor. Hundreds of Muslims turned up this weekend to hear her speak, followed by a lovely gala dinner where she was honored for her courage, her strength, and her action in leading South Africa's case against Israel for genocide at the International Court of Justice. I'm pleased to be joined by the CEO and founder of Justice for All, Dr Abdul Malik Mujahid from Toronto. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for joining us on Prime Live.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for invitation, and happy to talk to someone in South Africa.
It's a privilege for us to be able to have a conversation with you this evening, Doctor, and to also find out a little bit more about the incredible event that happened. Now, as a human rights organization, why was it so important for the organization to host this kind of event in honor of Dr. Naledi Pandor?
Dr. Pandor has continued in the tradition of Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, bringing South Africa in the eyes of the world as a leader for freedom and justice. And that was very significant. As she landed in Chicago, I was there to receive her. I'm based in Chicago. As soon as she came out, there were people who were looking towards her. Oh, are you the one who filed the lawsuit in ICJ? And they were not people of Islamic faith. They were other people. There were 700-800 people showed up in Chicago. 700-800 people showed up in Toronto, where I'm based. I'm visiting at this particular moment. All because of what she has done. Not only she has done which 153 countries have not done. 153 countries signed a treaty to prevent and punish genocide. What they have done to prevent genocide, which is happening right in front of our eyes in Palestine? Nothing. South Africa, under Dr. Pandor's leadership, stood up. And that's why we are very honored to have her here. People were standing in ovation multiple times for extended period of time. And people have feeling of joy despite the challenges of genocide, essentially because South Africa has done it once again under the leadership of Dr. Pandor, which the world failed to do.
Absolutely. I mean, as a South African, speaking from experience on behalf of many South Africans, we are all so incredibly proud to be South African, and that is because of the actions of Dr. Pandor and how she has been able to amplify the voices of the struggles that the Palestinian people are experiencing and take it to a global platform, and a platform on that which actual justice can be served. So, I mean, I absolutely, completely agree with everything you've just said and how incredible she is as an individual. And even now that she isn't the minister of the Department of International Relations, she still continues on her efforts and continues to raise her voice for the people of Palestine. Now, as Justice for All set out, they actually sent out notifications informing people of last Saturday's events. Now, you said something very important, and I'm going to quote you on this one. Now, this is about uniting for a cause that is greater than us all. Canada, this is the time to show up. And I understand that both Toronto and Chicago were very, very well attended as well.
Yes, there were, as I mentioned to you, 700-800 people were there. Both places we had to stop registration because we ran out of space. If there was a bigger spaces available, since it was done on a short notice, there will be 1,500 people on each places. And people were just simply thankful. Actually, one of the persons says she is the ICJ, because ICJ was never a word which people around the world knew. It's an international thing. It's a government forum when you file a lawsuit and wait there for years. It is because of South Africa under the leadership of Dr. Pandor and, of course, the president and all the leaders over there, that ICJ became a meaningful thing for world. When neighbors were not doing anything, Neighbors like Egypt, neighbors like Jordan, neighbors like Lebanon, neighbors like Saudi Arabia, all these people are silent, sitting doing nothing to stop genocide, while each one of them have signed the treaty to prevent genocide. That is when, under Dr. Pandor leadership and the Justice Department of the South Africa stood up. That must be respected, must be honored, not by our humble thing. I will tell you a demonstration of love for Dr. Pandor. A physician, a doctor, with his hand, crafted the award, spending a week crafting from a wood her name and Palestinian flag and the words of love, etching love in each letter over there. Who does this? Physicians are millionaires. They have money. They can hire people. But he wanted to show his love for her. And I have seen that.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing just to hear about the numbers of people that actually gathered to hear her speak, and to hear about how well she was received, and how people have so much of adoration as well as respect for her and her actions. And I think what was incredibly more inspiring is, like you said, many of Palestine's neighbors chose to remain silent when it comes to the genocide. And yet, right after South Africa decided to take action in terms of taking the case to the ICJ, we saw many countries standing up and supporting as well. And that's exactly the kind of leadership that she was able to impart on the world. She was able to allow the world to jump on the bandwagon to support Palestine. We saw many countries then following suit and supporting Palestine as well, which was incredible to see. And it's amazing to hear, how well received she was. And, unfortunately for us, we were not able to be there and to be able to listen to her address. And I know a lot of people were very moved by the things that she said. And a lot of people were very excited to be able to welcome her and to be able to listen to her, because she's such an eloquent speaker, and she has a really beautiful way of being able to communicate with people and to relay and resonate with her audiences. Can you share some highlights of her speech, or can you share some of what were your highlights from her address to the public?
She achieved three things here in her address, which I tend to call it lecture because I learned so much. I was taking notes. One of the things was she's very clear. She mentioned to the audience very openly that who are the people who are pleased with she not being a minister of external affairs any longer. And it is not good things for the world. Second thing she did was that how South Africa struggle against apartheid went on. And the third thing she shared, what people in this part of the world can do to stop genocide, following genocide as well as apartheid, as South Africa did. So I think it was very informed. Information level was so much that the largest high school in Chicago, in Toronto, wanted her to come and address their school audience. Of course, there was not much time, but she was very clear that what she has done is the credit of South Africa, with full support from the leadership and the government, and that this case, she is confident, will continue to go on. People, of course, are skeptic that, oh, well, why some government doesn't go militarily and stop. Now, that's for government to decide. The treaty to prevent and punish genocide is not clear about the intervention. But when people don't intervene, these type of things will continue because Israel is not listening. ICJ has already issued several injunctions, but Israel is not listening to those things. And who is going to enforce? Unfortunately, ICJ does not have an enforcement mechanism. But as long as this case will continue, people will continue to put a moral pressure on Israel. And Israel is worried enough that they are lobbying to America for Congress to put pressure and threaten South Africa with sanctions. And I hope the your new Minister of External Affairs, who was in Washington, D.C. last few days, was able to tell America very clearly that their decision to go in ICJ is a principled decision. It's not a decision of one leader, but it's a national decision which is grounded in the national character of South Africa. And that's the reason Nelson Mandela visited Gaza and met Yasser Arafat. Well, unfortunately, there is no more airport left in Gaza because that has been destroyed by Israel. And that's the reason Desmond Tutu declared it's an apartheid. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, it took them 20, 30 years extra to determine. So when South Africa speak, they know what apartheid is, and they also know how to defeat that. So this was part of our message that it's a responsibility of people in America as well as in Canada. We did not have just Muslim audience who were in majority, but people of different faith, including Jewish Voices for Peace in Chicago, including a rabbi of Jewish Voices of Peace in Toronto, they were part of the program as well. So were students. In anti-apartheid movement, these were students in North America, as Nelson Mandela in his autobiography looks, that if these people in the campuses across America and Canada and Europe have not stood up, our struggle may have suffered. Although victory is of South African struggle and their leadership, but they give substantial credit to students. And there were students present here and speaking and reaffirming their commitment to continue the struggle against apartheid, occupation, and genocide in Canada as well as in the United States.
I mean, it sounds like an absolutely incredible event, and it definitely sounds like we missed out for sure on Dr. Pandor's address. I completely understand what you mean when you say it feels like a lecture, because she is so full of wisdom, and there is so much knowledge and so much of value that can be learned from when she speaks, from her experiences, and her humble nature is what makes her very much a true leader, and that is why people are able to understand her so well and are able to resonate so well with somebody like her. She is a true representation of what leadership is, and it was amazing to see the impact that she has had on people, that she was not just reaching out to the Muslim community but the larger community as well, especially because when it comes to the genocide that's being inflicted on Palestine by Israel, we've seen so much of misinformation being spread on social media platforms when it comes to the genocide. And I think what Dr. Pandor's actions is, yes, she's speaking on all these international platforms, but also in her taking that stance and taking that place in taking this issue to the ICJ, it absolutely opened the eyes of a lot of people around the world to the truth and to the true genocide that is being inflicted on the people of Palestine, which was absolutely incredible to see. And that much needed sense of awareness was absolutely something that she was able to achieve. Now, what I also want to ask you this evening is that for Muslims who are living in the West, where the government of the day is very pro-Israel, like you were saying in North America, as well as in the United States, there are, a lot of propaganda around there, especially because the government is very, very much fully supporting of Israel. What advice do you have to give to them in order for them to not lose hope in terms of supporting Palestine?
One thing very ironical was, although this event was about a genocide which is ongoing, but the feel of it was not of sadness. Feel of the program was joyful. And I think this is because of the power Palestinians have acquired by standing up for almost a year now for their struggle, for their survival. And Israel, despite all the bombs and all the killings, which probably are close to 186,000, as scholars are saying, not 45,000 as numbers are going, is amazing. So people are devoting more attention, more time, And now people are talking about the ongoing Nakba. There was a mother Nakba which took place in 1948. But then there are repeated Nakbas. On just 10 years ago, on September 27, was another Nakba when Israel in Gaza killed 1,200 people. And so there is a whole history out there, but people are listening. For the first time, American public opinion is more sympathetic to Palestine than it is sympathetic to Israel. And Zionists in this country have substantially invested in last 100 years or so, and they're reaping the benefit of it. If Muslim community, along with our allies in Jewish Voices for Peace and other people of conscience, start investing in the impact on public policy, they will be able to achieve results. Just look at it. If public opinion is already positive for Palestine, why public policy or the foreign policy should be different?
Absolutely.
There is a gap between public opinion and public policy. That requires substantial work. I mean, this is the country where people who are running from Holocaust, children essentially, 900 children came to United States on a ship named St. Louis. And guess what? United States did not allow those children, Jewish children, running away from Holocaust to land in America. They were sent back. And according to one research, 30%, according to another research, 50% of those children were murdered. That's where Jews were in this country in terms of Zionism. But they worked on it.
Thank you so much
They
for joining us
invested
this
in
evening.
media, in their narrative.
Unfortunately, Doctor, we have run out of time. But thank you so much for joining us this evening, as well as sharing, just the history behind why Zionism absolutely has no place in the United States or even in North America as well. And thank you so much for joining us this evening, just to let us in on the amazing experience and the amazing event that did take place to honor Dr. Naledi Pandor. So thank you so much for taking us in and sharing the experience with us, because it definitely sounds like we missed out. So thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Viewers at home, that was Dr. Mujahid telling us all about the incredible event that took place honoring Dr. Naledi Pandor for her strength and her efforts in highlighting and amplifying the voices of Palestinian people. Do engage with us on our social media platforms and let us know what are some of your favorite moments of Dr. Naledi Pandor. What are some of her famous words that really resonated with you? But on that note, it is time for us to head over to an ad break, and we'll come right back.